Okay, guys. So it's just gone 1 minute past half past. So if everyone's okay, we'll get going. I'm sure there'll be a few that join just a little bit after. But good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. Hopefully, you can hear me well and see my screen. Fantastic. So um, this morning is really, as the title says, talking about effectively how we've been helping and also how Dynamics 365 and Microsoft technology toolset can help housing associations and home builders sell more effectively, more efficiently, and how technologies like artificial intelligence, as well as workflow and automation and business process flow, can help you do exactly that. So some of you, I know there was quite a few people that joined and signed up to the event in the last few days. So thank you for joining. Some of you will have hopefully received in the post your breakfast packs if you signed up a little bit earlier. So I hope you're enjoying those. And later on this afternoon, we've got Rob Bloom from Accent Group, who's kindly helping us with the event to do a Q&A session to talk about fundamentally some of the challenges that they've faced and how they've actually leveraged the solution itself to drive productivity in the sales teams. So just so we get started, because there's a few new faces to ourselves as Crimson on the call. I thought I'd give everyone a little bit of a background about who we are. Great as well that there's some familiar faces. So some of the people and brands on our screen, representatives from our existing customers, which is fantastic. So Crimson really is, for all intents and purposes, a Microsoft Gold technology partner. And we have chosen to specialize in specifically housing associations and home builders. And with that, what we want to cover off, obviously, as I say today, is a specific aspect of the journey, which, whether you're a housing association, is sales and marketing of new and existing homes, as well as some of those guys who have come through from developments. And from a home builder perspective, some of the sales automation and sales efficiency that you can gain in selling homes and new homes on your sites as well. But what we really specialize in is leveraging the Microsoft technologies. We've got practices in Azure, Power BI, but typically for customers alike and your peers in the housing and home builder space, we leverage Dynamics 365 and the Microsoft Power Platform, but also do a lot of work with other technologies like Modern Workplace and Microsoft Azure, as I say, Power BI, Power Platform, and multiple different technologies. And what we really do and what we specialize in is looking at, your business processes, taking industry insights and best practice around the customer engagement sentiments, mapping those hotspots and digital hotspots, and how you can leverage technology like Microsoft Power Platform or Dynamics 365 to drive better customer experiences, but also better experiences and operational experiences for your working staff. So a little bit then just on the sales and marketing capability. For those of you that aren't necessarily too au fait with D365, as I say, we've got some of our existing customers here who are already using Dynamics 365, and some of you may have previously seen it. But what Microsoft Dynamics 365 is a market-leading customer engagement platform that has sales, marketing, and workflow capability, as well as things like artificial intelligence built in, which is what I'm going to talk about later today. Specifically, how that aids and helps housing associations and home builders alike to drive those sales. So this is just a blueprint at the moment of what D365 looks like in terms of capabilities across those marketing and sales channels. So this is effectively as a technology what you're donoring at a very high level blueprint out of the box. So we can see there, across the top you've got multi-channel and channel shift capabilities to really engage and take the channel choice of the customer, and effectively, really make sure that regardless of what sales communication channel or customer communication channel, customer wants to involve you in, you're able to do that and manage that efficiently. what we have as well is a plethora of leading marketing capabilities, a number of options with solutions in play there, but the ability to then go and drive, whether it's site opening days, whether it's site launch events, whether it's physical campaigns, and homes launch events and promotions that we're able to drive out with the marketing platform. And then, of course, using and feeding that through into the inquiry management piece and ultimately prospective purchasers, and driving that through from sales. And of course, certainly, whether you're a housing association, sales will mean to converting a prospect, and various different tenure types that you may pursue with a particular customer. Um, and from the home builder private side, confirming those reservations and taking that reservation through to completion. So hopefully that just gives you guys, for those of you that are less familiar with D365, what the technology does as a blueprint. What we do as Crimson is we use and leverage what we call our home builder and housing accelerators, which effectively are pre-configured capabilities. That means that, as I'll show you in the demonstration later today and this morning, we've got capabilities, entities, business process flows, workflows, dashboards, and reports that actually look and feel and make it feel like a home builder platform to start with, and it's that initial platform for you to be able to take, install, and then effectively build upon as part of a leading Microsoft solution. So, technology aside, and the actual blueprint of D365, I think what certainly as a consumer, how I feel about how I'm marketed to, and how I'm involved in the um, particular sales process, whether it's buying buying something very simple or a commodity on one of the large online retailers like Amazon, or whether it's booking a holiday, or even potentially purchasing something slightly more emotive, which might be a car, or in your case, homes. My view is that there's still massively, for those larger purchases in a home builder sense, that human element and that traditional element to the sales process. And I think most of you on the call who are tuning in would agree with that. So when we talk about intelligent and automation with Dynamics 365, what we're not talking about is replacing those things. In fact, part of the point of the technology is actually to enable and to deliver a greater amount of time for us to actually make selling more personal. Certainly, what I've seen in some of certainly Rob will talk about it later today, the work that we've done with him and some of you others, whether it's in home builder or housing, across the thing. I think what's clear, certainly that I see day to day, is that personal side of selling and that human element, is certainly when we're having to work remote at the moment. And engage remotely, and with all the sort of parameters that you guys have had to work with around site closing, site opening, appointment only, all of those good things, those personal touches and those actual physical touch points are just as important as some of the automated things that we'll talk about today. And my point is here, really, if you've got the technology and you've got the capabilities to drive an automated sales experience, what that allows you to do, is free up the individuals on the ground who are that at the coalface with the customer to make that experience more personal. What we see, and if you've been into any sort of technology events in the last 3 years, people all the time are talking about a number of hot topics, whether it's IoT, certainly artificial intelligence is something that comes up all the time. And I don't know whether you guys have sat and had conversations with family or friends about a particular holiday destination, and then all of a sudden you've heard or seen a Facebook ad pop up of that particular destination pop up. Happens to everyone all the time now. But more importantly, um, what I think you guys can benefit from is leveraging some of the underlying smart capabilities like artificial intelligence to really understand, look at your customer journey and say, where could we actually automate some of those things, but also use the tools that things like Microsoft provide to actually be more intelligent with the information that we harness. Looking at things where it could even be, and we've talked about this not necessarily for today, but with other scenarios in home building. So perhaps defect and snagging prevention. using artificial intelligence to analyze patterns around, is there particular suppliers, particular vendors that we're getting materials from that keep recurring and going wrong. So this is just an example of a, intelligent sales and marketing process that we've mapped out. It's just a standard blueprint, but really how you can actually take the technology to actually create and deliver an efficient experience. So we're going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence today. We're going to talk about how that can be leveraged and how, certainly in a call facility, how we can analyze and use artificial intelligence to manage phone calls and actually then sentiment that may be coming into a sales site or, across a number of sales sites. But what we're also going to be talking about is right at the start of the demonstration is Rightmove and enquiry portals integration. So I think it's massively important, certainly when I've seen a number of you and a number of our peers that we've got in housing and home builders, it's massively important that data integrity is leveraged, and also you guys are paying, not an insurmountable amount of money to Rightmove and in some cases Zoopla, New Homes for Sale, etc., for the leads that you get. It's really, really important that you're effective with those leads and that you continue to make sure that you've not got duplicated leads across your sales estate, but also that those leads are harnessed, they're properly qualified, but they're managed efficiently and effectively. So what we've created using a Microsoft cloud integration leading technology, Microsoft Azure Service Bus, which I won't go into the technical details of it, but effectively is a messenger-based integration that allows us to do both bi-directional integrations with the inquiry portal and portals that we work with and that you guys subscribe to. So in the example specifically, I'll show a really base example of how we pull inquiry data live through from Rightmove and effectively take that inquiry right the way through up to the point of a customer is then purchasing or putting down a reservation or, going into shared ownership, whatever it might be. But there's also cases and capability where, we're actually able to push property and plot and site information up to Rightmove as well to automate that process to save, that duplication and double handling of effort in you creating and setting out your site and plot data, but actually then taking that and consistently pushing that up. And not only does that save double handling of that amount of time, but also, drives consistency and means that, which is one of the most important themes we'll talk about today, a single consistent view of your site and plot data, but a single view of your customer and prospect data as well. We have got a section right at the end, guys, for you guys to ask questions as I go through the demonstration. By all means, if you want to use the chat facility to just drop a question in, and I'll try and pick those up at a Q&A session at the end. But I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes just showcasing you, as I said previously, some of that sales integration with Rightmove, how that works and how that looks and feels. I'll go through Dynamics 365 and what that looks like when we take an inquiry right the way through to the point in which a decision is made by the customer, whether it's a reservation or whether they decide to go into shared ownership or whatever it might be. And then we're going to look at some artificial intelligence dummy data and how we can actually, how the Microsoft technology is moving on to a point where we can start to look at conversational intelligence around phone calls and actually insights that are coming through that could be, either sales or service related. So with that, I'm going to go over to my D365 environment. So first thing is, this is our crew. Obviously, please don't go onto Rightmove and go and purchase our office now because we would very much like to keep it. But even though we're working at home at the moment, but this effectively, is a pretty standard Rightmove inquiry page, and this is where we're going to start the journey. So, very, very standard stuff that you guys, I'm sure, will be very used to. Just going to go through the process of filling in an inquiry. Very interested in your development. Use spelling. we'll take these details. And it's important at this point to note that, when we talk about integration with Rightmove, this is just a very basic page, but you will have, depending on how sophisticated you've gone with Rightmove, plot structures, site structures. I'm sure one of the questions that will get asked is, can we link those and push those into D365? And the answer is absolutely. So yes, it's under offer. Yes, a property to be valued. Good old cat. Oh, I don't know if you guys lost me for a second there. So we submit that inquiry and that goes through. Hopefully you guys can still hear me and see me okay. Fantastic. So whilst that's whirring away, I just wanted to give you guys, so we've submitted that inquiry and I'm going to talk about how I pick that inquiry up and manage that process through. So before I do that, again, apologies, some of you are already are reasonably familiar with Dynamics 365 and its principles, but for those of you that aren't, I'm just going to very quickly show you some of the housekeeping rules so you know what you're looking at. So Microsoft tried to make their products really, really intuitive and in line with other Microsoft technology that you'll inevitably use day to day already. So if I click the waffle, you can see that will take me through to my Office 365 area, which means it's all integrated and interconnected with my Office 365. So the good news is, if you're an Office 365 user already, it's all fully integrated and you've got a single sign-on capacity. Across the left-hand side is what we call the navigation pillar, which effectively is displaying all of the areas that are important to me. And if you see, you've got the white highlighted area, that's showing me just effectively and very simply where I am in the system. What we can create with Dynamics 365 is what we call apps. So, what we recognize is that users day to day, in particular job roles, just want to show and display the information that's relevant to them. And, often with a lot of systems, whether it's legacy CRM systems or ERP systems, I think one of the challenges we've always had back is, I wish we could condense the screens to be just focused and pertinent to our roles, which is exactly what you can do here in creating persona driven roles, whether you're a sales executive or sales site manager, it doesn't matter. So effectively, that's just I suppose a quick look and feel as to what you're looking at and how you navigate around D365. And you've got various sort of browser based quirks and buttons that you can use. And then, of course, in the center stage, this is just an example of one dashboard, you can have persona-driven dashboards that effectively, allow you to look at specific reports, charts, and dashboards that are relevant to your particular role. So, what we've created, and hopefully you'll see this across the left-hand side for housing associations and for home builders, our Homes Accelerator. If you have done already, looked at a specific Dynamics 365 out of the box demo, you'll notice that things like plots, sales sites, reservations, prospective purchasers, estate agents aren't out of the box. But with our Homes and Housing Accelerator, that effectively is something that's installed and plugged and played straight off the bat. So then, let's start to drop it back into the story of where we were with the inquiry. So the first thing to note is that effectively, you'll see that I don't know if you can see my phone there, but I've had, this is the sort of automation that we're talking about here. I've had a push notification to my phone, as well as a Ring doorbell notification. Naturally, I'm surprised I haven't got a Snapchat notification as well. But we've got a push notification from Microsoft Power Apps to basically give us, as you would as a sales advisor, to give you that phone push notification that a new inquiry through Rightmove has come. This is effectively what we call our sales site dashboard, which is for Rainbow Meadows. this is just one of those examples of a dashboards. And previously, as you saw, we were on the sales activity social dashboard. But what this is showing me is a bit of a sales site cockpit. Across the left-hand side, all the phone calls that have been scheduled for the next 7 days, all the missed calls because we've got our telephony system integrated and hooked up to the platform, all the inquiries that have come through via website, Rightmove portal, Zoopla portal, etc., and the open prospective purchasers. Now, we only call them prospective purchasers because that's a name that we've donated. But effectively, the way that the system works is you've got your inquiries, which is effectively raw, unqualified data that might come through, web-based websites, portals, and then you've got your prospect purchasers, which effectively is, those individuals and those inquiries get qualified, and I'll show you how you do that in a second. They're qualified, it's genuine interest from an individual or individuals to either purchase or get into some form of ownership of a home. So Kate Brown, you'll be pleased to see, and I'm certainly pleased to see, has popped right into our dashboard here. So you can imagine I'm a sales executive, sales advisor. The first thing that I can see is that Kate Brown has effectively come through as an inquiry. Yeah, so Kate Brown submitted her details and her interest in the Rainbow Meadows site. What's also great is that so that's the integration that's pushed through, and the Logic apps has triggered and fired so that the inquiry has pushed through automatically. So direct feed, no need for double handling of that data or managing it in an Excel spreadsheet. Secondly, what we've also done is created a workflow which for the site automatically means that a phone call, once a new inquiry is scheduled, we've set up a workflow rule that a phone call goes in the diary for the sales site team and the sales executive to make sure that within 24 hours, Kate Brown has had a follow-up. Now, effectively, you can create all sorts of service level agreement notifications and workflow rules of what about if that phone call is missed, escalate that phone call. Or you could even change the rules just through Microsoft workflow capabilities to not be 24 hours, but be 6 hours, whatever works for you. But that's the point here is, all the heavy lifting has been taken away. There's no creation of the record or manual creation of the record. I've got intelligent notifications through to my phone, my mobile phone, to let me know there's a new inquiry that's just come through. I've also got a phone call that's automatically been created. And what I've also got is the capability within Microsoft's push notifications directly within here, which is our intelligent assistant, which uses AI and push notifications to say a new hot inquiry has been created called Kate Brown. So effectively, and just finally on that, just to close the loop on all possible activities, I've also then got an email that's come through, which, as well as every other technology, and again, you don't have to have all of these turned on, but a link to the new Rightmove inquiry that's been created that's pushed through to me. So, if I am involved with emails or just come back from the site, I can see it in my emails. I can click that link and go through to the inquiry. So let's go and look at the process then. So if Kate Brown's come in, the first thing that we can sort of tell here, and you can use all sorts of clever sentiment analysis. In her message, she's put, "I am very interested in your development in Rainbow Meadows." What we've created just as a very basic lead scoring algorithm, and this is very, very basic, just for the purposes of a demo. If a lead is only just been created within 24 hours, and Microsoft artificial intelligence now can also interpret text or emails from that individual to analyze the sentiment of those emails or those texts that's come through to give positive or negative outcomes. So we've been using that a lot with case management for negative outcomes to understand the severity of a problem or if someone sounds unhappy. But in this case, you can use it very much from a effective sales perspective to actually drive and understand, is the person extremely interested? So all the details for Kate Brown has come through here. We can see the inquiry source has pulled through from the Rightmove website, and that there's an interest in Rainbow Meadows, which was the site we were on. And because of those rules that we've set around, a hot lead equals, and again, there's a few different rules we've got set up, but a hot lead equals, and you've got hot, warm, and cold. But a hot lead is effectively something that's been created in the last 24 hours. But as I say, you can get as sophisticated as you like with that to have a point scoring system and put your own lead scoring algorithms on that. What we've also got in the timeline here is just, what Microsoft can do automatically is create an audit trail of all the things and actions that have happened with the solution, so that anyone coming into the record, because we've got multiple different sales site individuals working on this, can see a direct timeline and a feed of all the interaction points that have happened with this particular inquiry. And of course, the phone call record is diarised and scheduled against Kate Brown. What we've got across the top here is Microsoft's business process flow, which effectively is the means to be able to go through a sales process, and take effectively this inquiry right the way through the sales process seamlessly in what we call effectively a checkpoint for. But essentially, hopefully you guys can hear me okay still. Yep, don't know whether I cut out for a second there. Effectively, all the naming conventions can be changed, but essentially this is a guided way in which you can report on these specific stages and these specific areas of the sales process, but also, have a guided, consistent way for the individuals on the ground to be able to carry out their sales process. Imagine having effectively it all laid out in front of you. I know a lot of new individuals who will come and work at your sales sites probably will have worked at housing associations or home builders before in new sales elements, but this drives a consistent way of working. So, we might have that conversation with Kate, and we've confirmed, her contact preferences. She's genuinely interested, and we'll hit this button across the top here, qualify, which then takes her to effectively a prospect outside of inquiry. Inquiry is a great area just to ring fence any prospect data to make sure that any prospective purchasers coming through is genuine data. So what we've now opened is the validate area, which allows us to decide things like, and these are just some preset options, what tenure type is it? And these are just a few examples, which of course you can add. Kate's discussing potentially a shared ownership engagement. We can then start to capture, okay, so what's the reason for Kate? You can imagine we're having conversations with Kate. This, by the way, is completely fully available via mobile. So if you wanted to use this on your mobile app or tablet, you can do. We're capturing basic information about what Kate's interested in and what her requirements are. We move that through to the next stage. And what we can use here is Microsoft Flow and Intelligent Workflow to do things like, based on all the stock that we have at the moment, or the plots in our sites, and Kate's criteria, what are the matched plots available based on her criteria, and using workflow to go and search the plots and the details and the assets that we've got in D365 and come back with options. So what we can see here is we've got a number of different plots that have come back. So I can actually then go into that particular plot and, ask Kate a little bit about, I'm sure at the point she obviously had that interest in the particular Crimson Office and Rainbow Meadows site. But we can start to talk about, effectively a number of different matches. What's great from you guys as a sales perspective is all the time that matching logic will match prospects and continue to match prospects until that particular plot or unit is sold. And effectively, you can see here we've got 100 people over the amount of duration that this plot's been available, or in this case, it's reserved. That effectively, these are the individuals that are still in the process of buying, or individuals that are reserved with us or reserved elsewhere that we've ticked. But this gives you an active marketing list if that particular plot is something that you want to promote and go out to. Again, on the particular plot record, I won't go into detail on this, but this is where we can also capture all the details of all the plot documents, plot progression, but all the information as well about the shared ownership aspect of the plot as well, for you that are specifically housing associations that are doing shared ownership. Again, Rob, hope you don't mind me doing this, but I've linked it to one of your homemade homes sites. And effectively, we're able to link this directly to your website as required for the particular plot, so that you've got the ability to actually go in and show the customer and talk them through that particular plot. one thing I wanted to show you as well, just in terms of further integration with Rightmove, so um, this is the area of the Rainbow Meadows particular development or site record. What we can see here is a list of all the particular plots that are associated here, and their status, who are the site team, that are involved, the sales executives, the subcontractors. But we can also, further the Rightmove integration to bring through the sales trends, actually look at, some of the key data that Rightmove provides us directly within D365. So particular market trends and sales trends on house prices in that particular area at this time. And of course, a separate process for the sites and developments process right the way through from buying land up to sales launch. But anyway, going back specifically into Kate Brown's prospect record and managing that, we're at this point now where effectively, Kate might have come to and fro to various different appointments and conversations. We've got the sales process tracked. And, if we then said that effectively Kate's got the mortgage offer in principle, and again, these are just predefined options that we can edit and change depending on the particular process. I go ahead and hit finish there. And what that will do, workflow kicks in, and that will go and create me effectively a process, which is what I've triggered this to automate it to push through to the reservation through to completion phase, and a new sets and stages will go through for us to go from reservation through to completion. Now, important to note, for those of you that are housing associations, what we do is effectively capture the different tenure types that you guys have, and the relevant tenure type details and process flow will kick in once effectively you've triggered and moved through that gateway of the customer wants to kind of make a commitment and a decision. So that just gives you a little bit about, there's a few things in there, how we use Rightmove integration to effectively manage a seamless process and an integrated process, how we use workflow to do things like match particular plots and properties, but also create phone calls and automated phone calls, how we create push notifications to the sales advisors to help them stay on top of what's going on in their sales site, making sure that they're actively looking at, information and key information that's available to them, and that they're staying on top of the inquiries that are coming through. I think the important thing to note as well is, stuff like lead scoring will really help when, if, for example, you're struggling to actually sort of move particular plots or units. Having this ring-fence database in this area, which is, creating that intelligent information, allows you to really harvest the data that you already have, rather than it being sat in spreadsheets or separate databases, or having a marketing system over here on the left hand side and a sales system on the right hand side. I haven't gone into great detail today just because of time around the marketing side, but what I will encourage is that, if anybody wants to see that in more detail, please do let me know. But you effectively can create a joined-up experience from marketing and emailing campaigns out the way through to site launches, and that single thread and inquiry data, web interaction, traffic data, and click-through data all pulls through to this one database. We're not talking about multiple systems managing that inquiry data. We're talking about a single view of the customer. So just the final part for the demonstration then was, as I said earlier in the brief, talking a little bit about how artificial intelligence can actually be used to leverage and harness call data. So what I wanted to show you is some of the conversation intelligent aspects that Microsoft provide, and effectively, just sign in here. Effectively, this is just using some demo example data. So it's not, unfortunately, we're just in the process of plugging in some dummy housing sales and home builder sales. Oh, like that. There we go. So what this is a tool and a technology, an edge technology from Microsoft, which is doing a number of things. We've, as you've seen earlier, plugged Dynamics 365 as our core system into our telephony system, whether that's Microsoft Teams that's being used, whether it's a Mitel system, whether it's even more basic than that. We can hook telephony systems into Dynamics 365 to ensure that calls inbound are screen popped and calls outbound are also screen popped to capture those phone call details that push through. When we do that, We can also turn on technologies like Sales Insights, which uses a tool called Cognitive Services, which to me and you breaking the technology lingo down, it means that the cognitive services aspect of the solution can interpret voice and then can interpret has its out of the box capability to analyze voice and conversations and sentiments. So what that means is it can actually take the conversations, understand, pace, language used, and has its own predefined, in sentiment analysis capability, which you can tweak over time and educate to determine and tell us whether certain conversations are positive, neutral, or negative, and how conversations are generally going. So, in addition to that, what we're then using is this sales insight capability, which is effectively Microsoft Power BI and is artificial intelligence under the covers, which is, Power BI is showing us all this reporting that we can see that's coming through from the call data, which is then analyzed by Microsoft Cognitive Services. And then artificial intelligence on this reports is giving us suggestive actions based on the things that are happening with our data. So we're in the process of putting this demo data in regards to home builder sales and housing sales. So bear with us. This particular data set, just for the time being, is looking at, believe it or not, coffee. Um, and looking at a sales center that will be coping and managing calls with coffee. But if you just for a second imagine espresso into 3-bedroom houses, that would be much appreciated. So the first thing is, first look at the view of the businesses, all the call data that's been coming in and all the sales data that's been coming in. What are our customers talking about? So these are some headline dashboards and insights. You're looking at things like 50 and salient artificial technologies and fourth coffee. What it's then doing is looking at actually the call data in comparison to sales success. So who's actually, as individual data, been closing um, the most sales in this case. So what categorizes the top performers? So it's looked at that call data and also said, also compared that with sales data, i.e. sales win data, and said top performers on your team have a talk to listen ratio of 63 to 37, which is higher than 59 to 41. Yeah. Top performance on your team have been mentioning sensor, IoT, and VIP more than others. Okay, so there's perhaps keywords and key phrases and phraseology that's being used by the individuals who are having more success. Top performer calls have more negative customer sentiment, so that's an interesting one. What we can then do is drill into it. You imagine that holistically across, your estate and across the different teams on the ground. What you can then do is go into the specific sales sites teams or particular sales teams that you've got to stretch that data out and actually look at, okay, so in this particular team, Molly Clark and Riley Moreiros appear to talk the most, averaging 70% during calls. This is 11% higher than your top performers who average 63% during calls. We can look at, positive and negative neutral sentiment by individuals. We can look at on those individuals, what is the average talking and listening time? So whilst at the moment, it might seem a little bit, big brothering and go, wow, is this, is this a sledgehammer to crack a nut? I would say, at this stage, what we've got to expect in the same way that I gave the analogy at the start when we're talking moving forward about, just having a conversation with family and friends about a particular holiday location, and then for it to be posting and popping up on our internet browsers or social media sites, when we've got we talk in technology and in business, we talk about data all the time. Having your data in one place means that you can start to leverage and look at this type of information. And this for me isn't about Big Brother or really getting turning the screw on individuals. This is about analyzing training patterns. This is about analyzing and looking at what works versus what doesn't work. What we can kind of give the tools to the individuals around the sales assets that we've shown there to help them integrate and automate their day-to-day lives and actually drive consistent ways of working. But what this is giving us is actually that real-time insight as to who's doing what and when they're doing it and how they're operating and performing. And ultimately, is there certain individuals who might, benefit from actually some one-to-one coaching or one-to-one support. So I can then actually then go into, after being into team, go into individuals' performances and look at, on a one-to-one basis, how they've performed across sales calls. And this is actually then looking at, the customer sentiment. I'm looking at Alan's details, what's their KPIs and key across those calls, positive versus negative customer over time. And I can actually then go into, the specific call logs and transcripts in the conversation that Alan's had and what the action items might have been. Yeah. So this is where we can also use artificial intelligence and automation to interpret when conversations around next actions are triggered and also create and automate tasks into our diary into D365. So, okay, would you like me to send out a Rainbow Meadows information pack? Yes. Okay, that can automatically be created by Microsoft Dynamics 365 to then drive and automate that process. And this just gives you an indication. If I click here, what are the keywords that are being listed out? The customer here is Max, and Alan is our sales executive, and we can go through that conversation in detail and look at what particular highlights and keywords are mentioned. So might seem a little bit forward thinking, a little bit out of reach at the moment for some of you. Some of you I appreciate may even be working on spreadsheets to manage sales and marketing and developments data at the moment. But this, make no mistake about it, every time, certainly even as someone, if I take my Crimson and Microsoft hat off for a second and just think about myself as a technology spectator, some of the technologies that Microsoft was showing at a recent event or UK event and global event actually that took place the other week, even things like virtual reality are coming into play in the real world now. And artificial intelligence, when we're using and leveraging the systems like Dynamics 365 to get a single view of the customer and to really drive our sales operations, tools like this, it might seem a little bit like, Christ, that's a little bit of a step too far at this stage. I guarantee you in the next, 3 to 5 years will be just the day-to-day and the norm. So hopefully that gives you an indication of how we integrate with Rightmove, how easy it is to track that data, how easy it is then to take that feed and put it into Dynamics 365 to actually drive efficiencies with that particular inquiry and sales prospect. Hopefully then you'll get a feel for what it looks and feels like as a very basic level for a sales individual, and that really is out of the box what I've shown you there, nothing that we've really sort of polished up there. And then this should just give you a sort of a little bit of a view to and food for thought across actually the future of selling, whether it's in your housing associations or home builder businesses, integrating with those. Also having the capabilities of Dynamics 365 means that it's got open API and integrations with other technologies, meaning you can pull data from different places to get that single view. But once you've got that data, what types of things can you do with it, and what technologies can you use to drive enhanced performance and better understanding as to what actually is going on day to day with your customers and with your colleagues. So with that, what we wanted to do now is just have a conversation, if it's okay, Rob, to bring you in about actually one of our peers and customers, Accent, who came into the fold and started working with us on Dynamics 365. Despite the pandemic, have been doing a fantastic job over the last 12 plus months with homemade homes and sort of property in general. So morning, Rob, how are you?
Morning, Jordan. Hello, everyone. Fine, thank you.
Just a quick one, because I saw my internet go a couple of times. Have you been able to follow me so far?
I lost you for a few seconds here and there, but you were
Cool.
quickly restored. So
Fantastic. So good morning. So Rob, just whilst we get started, is it okay if you could just talk to us a little bit about the Accent Group, homemade homes, and a little about the overall association at this moment in time?
yeah, absolutely. So morning, everyone. Like John said, I'm Rob, Sales Director at Accent. joined the organisation about 2 years ago, at what is quite an exciting time. So as an association, we have around 22,000 homes, providing a home to about 35,000 customers. But we do have some exciting growth plans, and lots of ambition with that. So around 2 years ago, like I say, I joined our development and growth directorate was formed, and that was to create a sustainable model for Accent to develop a number of homes long term, to help fix the housing crisis. That is one of our corporate objectives. So we've done lots of things in that 2 years. So we issued our first bond to provide the finances to help develop these homes. Homemade, that you can see there that Jordan mentioned, is our sales brand within the organisation, the home ownership element of what we do. I manage a number of teams within the association. It's not just new build sales, it's secondary transactions, staircasing, it's right to buy, right to acquire for our tenants, and also the long-term management of our leasehold and homeowner customers. So whether they're a shared owner or a leaseholder, their relationship at the point of purchasing a property is just the beginning. So, and they could be a customer for a number of years. So that ongoing management is key. So developing or acquiring the properties, selling them, secondary transactions, and then on to the long-term sort of management and relationship side of thing. We're obviously very mindful of our purpose being a not-for-profit, and you know what the regulator asks us to do, and demonstrating value for money, etc. But we are also very mindful that we are a business. Sales receipts and staircasing receipts are important. So developing homes is not just about adding numbers to our stock levels. It's providing options for our customers, various tenures, something that all housing association colleagues on this call will be aware of and agree with. But we also understand that the shared ownership is certainly growing and continue to grow with the new model that's coming in to hopefully attract more people to it. But we're aware that customers have choice. So whether that's to pursue a shared ownership option with Accent or another housing association, or look at the help to buy equity loan, or decide not to purchase at all and rent. So what we want is Accent to be those customers' choice. So we want to be the choice for potential people looking to enter into shared ownership, etc. So joining Accent was a part of getting us ready for this longer term sustainable model. So that's people, processes, but importantly systems, obviously what we're talking about today. So we wanted to ensure that we were best placed for where, as our pipeline of development grows, that the fundamentals are in place to help us move forward effectively, providing great customer service, making things as easy as possible for colleagues, etc. So that's a bit about us. We are based in Yorkshire head office, but most of our development is in the east and the south. So we're not national. We probably refer to ourselves as multi-regional, because we do develop in various regions. But a lot of our current development program is based in the south and the east.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. That's really good insight. I think I think what was interesting when we spoke, like you say, there's quite a lot of you guys do have stock in a spread across quite a certainly in comparison to some of our other housing clients, quite a spread across the eastern patch. And I think it's really important the points that you say there. We in housing, certainly you talk about, like you say, it's not actually just about it really isn't just about upping your unit numbers. It really is actually about, what you're standing for is actually giving the customer and putting the customer at the center of choice, and actually giving them potential options for home, which I think is in every housing association's exec summary and report. But good to remind, certainly good to remind yourself certainly at every point that's what it is, and that's what you stand for, really. I obviously know why, but it'd be good for the sort of attendees on the call, Rob, just to talk to us a little bit about. Obviously, I know we've had the pandemic, and Christ, I think when we met about 14 plus months ago, you would love to have put a tenner on what the hell was going to happen for the next 14 months. But interestingly, when we spoke, could you just share a little bit with the individuals about, obviously you talked about the growth plans there and when you drove, but um, why you looked for a new system at the time you did?
Yeah, I think being frankly honest, when I joined Accent, there wasn't a system. So you've spoken about Excel spreadsheets, and I've talked about our plans to develop more homes and fix the housing crisis. So Accent were doing small bits of development here and there. It wasn't a core element of the business like it is now. So there was no system. So immediately before we're talking about what we wanted from a system, we identified that we need a system, because going into this in a larger scale, spreadsheets don't work from reporting angles, from customer service, as we've said. So we obviously wanted a system for various reasons, but one of the main reasons being is to provide experience, a positive experience to that customer on their journey of purchasing a home, or buying more of their home, what have you, from Accent. So we wanted any customer to have the same positive experience. Doesn't matter where in the country they're buying a property, which team member they're dealing with. Consistency was quite key. We wanted a system that could work alongside other technologies and methods. So it had to work with our current housing management system, our finance system, but it also had to, gel and interact with other methods of ways, and ways of working. So how we do things, or how we want to progress and do things. So it had to be flexible and be able to adapt. Um, Many people on this call will, like you said, be using Dynamics or similar systems, or be considering that. But we really didn't have anything. So we have gone from nothing to what I feel is a fantastic system. So we've sort of gone from 0 to 60 very quickly. And it does embrace those other technologies, which is, fantastic. So we've certainly ticked that box. Um, Touching on the lockdown element of thing, obviously, yeah, it has been crazy. We'd all agree on that. And really, back in the early days of March, no one knew what was happening from one day to the next. Um, we still had targets to meet. We had properties, while small numbers this year, there were still properties being acquired, developed, that, were continuing on site in many cases, and being handed over, and they needed to be sold. I honestly, we've had a fantastic year. Whether we would have had as good a year if we didn't have Dynamics, I can't be sure, but I would say no. I don't think we would have done. And it was luck that we started this process before many of us had even heard of COVID-19. I first met you, Jordan, before I'd certainly heard of it. We had to, during the pandemic, continually adapt and consider new ways of working, like I say, because things were changing daily. We were put in lockdown. The housing market was effectively closed. Then it reopened, but there were requirements, etc. But we did have a successful year. We have exceeded all of our targets. We're not quite at the end of the year. We've done that. We had a conversation yesterday that we wish we had more homes to offer, because we're at the early stages of our growth plans. The numbers ramp up over the coming years. But 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 with this, it's equally important that we don't forget those customers and bring them on that journey. And really, what the way Dynamics has helped is having automation, DocuSign integrated, etc., meant that we don't have to be sitting in a show home taking a reservation on a paper form. We can literally do that in minutes now, whilst on a Zoom call or a FaceTime call with a customer, and it hasn't slowed us down. So that's not directly pandemic related, but it certainly helped during the pandemic. But
I think
overall, it's just improved process.
I think when we spoke previously, like you said, when you came in and you had nothing, it was almost,
Mm.
and I know this might sound like archaic to some, but because you had nothing, you could have even got to the point where reservations would have had to be done by post, right?
Yeah.
Certainly. So yeah, no, and I think what's been clear to me when we've spoke about obviously the journey that your team have been on as well. When I've spoke to a number of those on the ground, when we are working remote as we are at the moment, and I imagine, there will be some form of new norm where we do at some point get together more frequently. But I do think, remote working is going to continue to be a theme. Um, having when you're remote working, ensuring that individuals have those tools to be effective, and that you're all working from the same data set. Not
Yeah,
and also like you say, one of the things I think was key, actually, you don't have to, but integrating with your housing management system again. What that was key for me is when we're talking about that single customer view, we're setting and handing off the right point to the wider housing association with the customers that you're serving as well. So I think that was massively important,
yeah.
as part of it, Rob.
I mean, there were a number of factors, and I could sit here all day. But clear reporting, what it gives us is real-time reporting, and that's accessible. You've talked about tablets, phones, but whether you're on a train going to another office, everything is live and with you all the time. But it's also
Mhm,
accurate. So we've built in into our out of the box that we've worked with you with your accelerators, as you mentioned. We've got real-time reporting on number of days from releasing a home to agreeing a reservation, and then reservation to exchange, and that's broken down by region, house type, local authority area, number of bedrooms. So it gives us um, real time data, and as we use the system over months, years, it will only grow to give us more informative information. And what that allows us to do is make informed decisions. So whether
mhm,
that's, we're looking to bid for a new site, many associations will have a set of criteria or parameters that they use when making new business bids. We can be a bit more flexible because we have real-time data of, rather than assuming X amount of void time, we know in this area this type of property sells in this amount of time. And again, as the years go on, it gives us more of that to be more comfortable with the decisions that we're making. We are on a journey, and this is just the beginning. So we wanted a system that can be flexible and adapt. I think I've spoken about that, and continually improve. So continual improvement is important for us. So just because we're doing something now, it doesn't mean that that's the way we want to do it, or someone informs us we have to do it, being regulated in 6 months time or 6 years time. So the flexibility is important.
mhm,
Really, really key for me is we want to employ salespeople, people who, and you've touched on this, have the time to spend having those important informed conversations with customers. And what I found previously, there was a lot of administrative duties that were getting in the way. So reservation forms can be quite detailed. So, typing that in on a system, or filling that in on a pad in an office takes time. So we've built in, it's automated. It links to it sends it out to the customer, it fills it in automatically. They sign it via DocuSign. We sign it, it's stored on the system, and we're done. And that is minutes. But what it does allow, because shared ownership does require some hand holding in a lot of circumstances, is it allows time to have maybe a Zooms or a Teams call or a FaceTime call with that customer while they have it in front of them and go through it with them without being
mhm,
able to be in a show home. So taking that admin away was key, because as the market changes and things may get more difficult, more focus will be required on generating that interest and converting that interest into reservations. Obviously, you spent a bit of time about linking to Rightmove, and I've talked about linking to other technologies, but most of our leads do come from Rightmove.
mhm,
We do, it's a big expenditure for us, but you get what you pay for, I believe. And certainly, what actually there's twofold to this. It tells us where our leads are coming from and the quality of those leads, and it's confirmed what I've just said about Rightmove. But it also helps, as you say, with that automation. So customers can get a response whenever they need to. I can see the number of leads that are coming in per region, per sale. How many leads we get in comparison to how many properties we've got available should generally sort of ride together, so we can see if there's any issues, or and try and predetermine as well. So linking with Rightmove was key. I've spoken, about proactive approach, not losing the personal touch, um,
mhm.
is very important.
I think you've only got to, like you say, Rob, you've only got to think back to, when you take your sales hat off or marketing hat off for a second, think about your own experiences. I know it's been very hard to come by at the moment because of the pandemic, but those big emotive decisions that you've made, um, you can have all the automation in the world. Some of the
Yeah,
stuff that I've shown is great, where you can push comms and automate, certain things. But what really makes those differences, certainly when people perhaps are a little bit weary, a little bit lost about, because it's that growing concern around, am I making the right decision? Those human elements and people by people in homes and housing at the moment,
yeah,
still. Um, And that's the key for me here is, it's not, I think when I've spoke to some people, I've clearly confused the hell out of them when I talked about artificial intelligence to say, robots aren't going to sell homes. No, that's not what we mean. Artificial intelligence and technologies like workflow and automation, give individuals that time back to make that process more personal
Yeah.
is what I see.
I think you say that, Jordan, but then you know we talk about driverless lorries now, don't we? Who would have thought that 10 years ago? Convoys of
Very
lorries
true.
with no driver in. But for me, we can only deal with what's in front of us now, but try and
Hmm.
focus, do that horizon scanning,
Yeah.
and allowing time to have meaningful conversations and thinking long term. If that person isn't ready to buy now, if we're seen as the organisation or the company that spent time explaining properly, it may be us that they come back to in 6 months or 2 years when they are ready to do something.
Hmm.
So that's an important consideration.
Yeah, and also that you've got visibility of them within that single threaded area that everyone can kind of see and pick back up.
Yeah,
Because you think about the staff changes at that time and bit different individuals that have come into the team. So
yeah,
I think I'll just spend very quickly on this. I think what was interesting about the process that I saw that you went through, because you had nothing. I know obviously being a housing association, public sector, there's obviously fun and games with procurement processes and hoops that you have to go through. What was really interesting is obviously, you were quite upfront, and your procurement team were as well about the fact that you wanted quite a quick turnaround. And I think you guys went through the G Cloud framework, didn't you, in order to enable that, which I think um, certainly what I've seen in speaking to other housing associations have talked to us about, well, how would we get something like this in? It was quite a supplier day, wasn't it? For an RFI initially processed, then a
yeah,
supplier day, and then the G Cloud agreement. And I think we were pretty much then, because of the it's not a sort of project that's commercially funded for replacing a whole entire housing management system. It's a tactile solution that you're able to drop in and process through quite quickly, which I think helped you guys, didn't it, get up and running a little bit quicker?
yeah. It did. So, like a lot of traditional housing association housing management systems, ours doesn't really do anything for the sales team. It doesn't guide the sales process. So, I've spoken about the fact that quickly we needed to identify a system. Whilst we don't, well, at that time didn't have huge numbers, we did have properties that were being developed and needed to be sold. So we did want something quite quickly. Like you said, I didn't really want an elongated process to get there. So we just did a request for information, and we followed that by a supplier demonstration where we had a number of organisations come and say, this is what we can offer, this is what we propose as a solution. And then we did use G Cloud, the government framework, to allow us to contract with Crimson. It really wasn't a difficult process.
No.
Procurement colleagues dealt with most of that, if I'm honest, but we liaised and I was kept up to date. Um, you know, and really the whole project, I think from the first time we met suppliers, including Crimson, to having the system live, I think was about 14 months. So,
Hmm.
it, and a lot of that was, once we'd actually made the decision who to work with, delivering the project was a lot quicker. It was actually a real pleasure to work on.
Yeah. So just I know you spoke about to me prior that you'd worked with Dynamics 365 before, but I suppose just knowing now that you're using it, what sort of particularly is attractive to it about to you,
Yeah, I think the fact that I had used it before and seen the changes it can bring was key. I'd gone through a process before of starting sort of the stage before of we need to introduce a new system. So I'd been through the process of looking at what was about there. I think it is important to know that having used Dynamics before at the beginning of this process in my journey of Accent, it was still a case of, is there any new technology? So technology does move so fast. So is there something that we're not aware of? But coming back to Dynamics, once we'd sort of made that decision, what backs that up is the fact it is a market leader. Microsoft, we've all heard of them. It's a household name. It's again, I've mentioned it is very adaptable and flexible, and that's key. Um, it's not. It's also really important that the way it has to be user friendly. So the way Dynamics has the look and the feel of Windows and stuff, everything we use every day on our PCs, laptops, it has that look and feel. So it's very easy to navigate, and that's key. So when you're delivering systems for colleagues, teams, obviously we want them to have a positive approach to it. So the comfort of familiarity, in terms of view, etc. And also, what was key, that we already use Microsoft Office 365.
Mhm.
So obviously it connects seamlessly, and we already have a lot in place across the business that really made it quite an easy decision.
That's great. Thanks, Rob. So just on that, I know you've touched upon a few of these points already, but sort of your experience as an end customer of Dynamics at the moment, but also, I suppose a lot of people are interested in, just I suppose for you to expand on if you can, what are those rewards that you are reaping as a result of putting the system in? If you to even pick a two or three or a handful of things that really have made those differences certainly across the year that we've had.
I mean, there really are so many, but I'll try and pull some big ones out. I mean, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but we've talking about the experience to our customers. And we have had comments about, we didn't expect a housing association to do things like this, because, if I'm very
Mm.
honest, housing associations is often one end of the scale or the other. They're really embracing of technologies, or they're behind. And we were behind, like I say, and we feel that we've really pushed forward with it. But the experience to the customer, and the customer journey, that would be top of my list.
Mhm.
Secondly, it has fundamentally changed the way the team work. Um, they can spend more time with customers. They've got one view of their workload. It's helping them go through a process. If there's automation there, it takes that administration away. So that's key. Again, we don't want to talk about it all the time, but lockdown. So while that, we hope that's not a long-term, improvement, it certainly helped us through this and continues to help us through this period. We're talking about reservation forms, automation, etc. And it to summarise all of that, it really has played a major part, I feel, in our success this year. Um, and
Yeah.
and and also another thing, a small thing, but it's actually enabled us to become totally paperless. So across all the teams, and working from home, at the beginning of this, we had team members meeting up halfway in between houses to pass files, etc., before annual leave. That's totally eradicated everything. So we are totally paperless. And again, moving forward, working in show homes, marketing suites, etc., and being able to access anything from anywhere, is key.
Thanks, Robin. I think you've got. I'll let you talk on this point, but I know we had a little bit of a, fortune in that you'd worked on CRM projects before, and had used Dynamics 365 before, and knew what it took to deliver a solution well. And from my perspective, it's been a fantastic engagement and working with you. I think there were some key points that you recognised right from the start. To any housing association or future home builder that is looking to do, regardless of whether it's D365 or another system, you got some sort of good pointers that you realised as an end customer that you've got to bring to the party, and so it'd just be good to share that advice. I think if you're okay to do so, Rob, with what
Yeah,
your
yeah,
thoughts are.
yeah. I mean, as you said, having worked on Dynamics implementation projects for a second time, um, what worked well or didn't work quite so well previously. Um, and obviously the headline objective of the projects were very similar, but they actually, the way they were delivered were quite different. But in terms of advice, it really is a collaborative effort between the organisation, whether you're a private developer or a housing association, and your partner of choice. And I think what we found at Crimson is the consultants that we worked with really are quite passionate, and they wanted our end product to be as fantastic as we had. We had something in our mind, and they were on board with that. And it really was a collaborative effort. Not, can we have it do this? Yes, I've done that. Tick the box, move on. It really was, okay, yeah, we can do that, but have you thought about this and how we connect to that? And there were some real powerful meetings. You could feel the excitement. It was over Teams, and that was a concern as well, because we were all geared up, weren't we, Jordan, to do all these design
In
workshops face to
person.
face,
Yeah.
and that got taken away. And that, there was no difficulty there, but
We were a
collaborative
bit
effort.
nervous at the start, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, you tell me now, yeah. um, engage people within the business. So we've talked about front end users, and these are the people who are going to be using it day in, day out. So get them engaged early, and I think get them excited about it and let them have an input, because if I'm honest, I don't know the ins and outs of we've used a system. It's not just new build sales. We're doing shared ownership sales, shared ownership resales, outright sales. I'm trying to remember them now. Right to acquire, right to buy, staircasing, rent to buy, and disposals, all on the product that we've developed. So that's a big number of people that are involved in all that stuff. So we had to get them on board, get them excited. And I don't know how to do every step of all those processes. They do, because they deliver it day to day. So it's key to get them involved at the right times. And I think don't. This is a big one. Don't worry about taking a step back. And we had to change a lot of the way we did things, not to fit with Dynamics. We wanted to improve. So if we had a 5-stage process and we can do it in 4, that's better for the customer. But we used it as an opportunity to change the way we look at how we do things. We didn't have a process and said this process must be mirrored on Dynamics. We used it as an opportunity to look at how we do things. And I think that probably wasn't so much, coming out of the project is something that I realized that more. And looking back is something that I would say is use it as an opportunity.
I think you raise a good point about the certainly engaging end users. We see it all the time. So uh, naturally, some scaled organizations, you can't involve absolutely everyone. But what's important, if you can't involve everyone, is that you've got this sense of committee and community feeling when you're delivering a new software package and solution into the business. Make no mistake, certainly everything that I've shown today and the solutions that we put in for housing association and home builders, they're not IT systems. They're business led transformational projects, and the business has got to contribute and feel involved and feel that they've influenced the decisions that are being made. If they don't, then it's that change feeling of expecting to come in on a Monday morning. There's an email that says, congratulations, we've now got the new system live. Here's the
Yeah,
login details. And that whole lapse in time and investment that's been spent by you as a business and then not involving the business means that your adoption rates of the system, which, by the way, a system's only as good as its adoption rates, because if you've not got that adoption, your data's not there, the tools aren't being used, etc., etc. So making sure that those individuals are involved in this, let's say, because like you said, Rob, it's not just a new system, is it? It was a change. There was a people and
yeah,
process change as well as actually Dynamics coming and leveraging those technologies. And of course, there's a time and grace period where you've had to get some of the guys, give some of the guys some time to get up to velocity to use the system, right?
yeah.
Um,
I think, and going back, we spoke about the procurement, but what we did is we invited team members to sit in on those supplier days. So from day one, when I saw all these systems being presented, high accent, do you want to buy our system? We had team members in those sessions,
mhm,
because their feedback was important. And Dynamics is, like I say, it's not just a new system, it is a fundamental way of working. So when you come in the office in the morning, turn your laptop on or go to your office at home, wherever you are, open your Outlook. It's mirrored with Dynamics. So the first thing we all do is open Outlook and open Dynamics. It's open all day. Everything's happening through it. It's live. It's happening. It's progressing everything that we do, and it goes off at the end of the day. It's not something you nip into once or twice during the working day. It's there. It's doing everything that we need to do.
absolutely. And yeah, I think certainly the bit that you talked about, it's being a collaborative effort. I think what you've seen and what you saw when we presented Dynamics 365 and then our accelerator was, look, the foundations are there, the aspects of the solution, as its core of what we need. But actually, part of this collaboration and engagement was actually for us to talk to you about, like, what does the technology do well? What can you leverage to actually improve your processes? But the support that you were able to give us, as well as a partner being completely transparent for us to allow us all to succeed, was those tenure types that you spoke about there and the different shared ownership. I won't reel them off like you just reeled them off then. Those different, those different processes, you're able to kind of come to us. It doesn't necessarily need it to be, convoluted detail, but a good understanding and appreciation of those processes and how we'd map those into some of the tools that we showed earlier, like the business process flow, and some of the fields and forms that we used. So that was really useful. So um, I suppose at this point, then I want to take it to the floor. If anyone's got any questions for myself and Rob, I said there was a few the ability for people to ask questions if you wanted to via the chat. If you want to do that, then feel free, or come off mute and ask a few questions. Um, One thing I do have, Rob, just to kind of get the questions going, is um, you know speaking speaking on behalf of the audience. What is next? What potentially would you want to do to continue to improve what you're doing, both in business related with Accident and Homemade Homes, but also then on the technology front as well.
Yeah, so I think this is in terms of dynamics, we already have a phase two planned, and how we can take that further. So like I said, we have gone from nothing to this. So we are mindful that we don't want to jump. We want to embed what we've got, but it does give us that flexibility to continue to improve. So we already have a list of projects for phase two that I am adding to all the time, and colleagues are sort of, put this on the list, add that to the list. But also, it's not just the conversations. It's not just sales. It's not just what we do. It's how it can link with the rest of the business, and create that one organization view of the customer going through their various journey with us as a business. So whether that's
Mhm.
through the sales brand Homemade, or a rented customer being introduced to a new tenure type, or because we're very much focused on that customer journey, of a customer's journey, whether it's they're moving through tenures, what have you. So now that we have the system, we see it's easier to take it further, and really is the options are endless. Some of the stuff you've shown today, we're not using at the moment, but we're having conversations about, and they are more bolt-ons because the fundamentals are in place. And I feel
Yeah.
that the relationship between Accent and Crimson is there. You understand what we do, so we now have a recognised partner that it's easy to come to and say, "What about this?" And it's not, "Can we have?" and you say, "Yes, you can. Here's the cost." It's, "How do you think we can improve?" Because you understand us now, like you said,
Mhm.
and you understand a lot of what we do and how we do it. So recommendation is not just can we have, can we add, can we enhance? The relationship is in place where you can make recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important. What we try to do as well, hopefully, and as you've seen in the process, is challenge you around some of the other things that we've done in other places, not even just in housing or home builder, but actually, out of sector, things that are coming in the different technology paths, like some of that conversational intelligence stuff, which might be in that example, in a retail example, with discussing coffee rather than homes, but how you can leverage and harness that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I can't see any questions that have come through on the chat, but no, that's been really, really useful, Rob. If anyone has got any questions, feel free to come off mute. As a final, just as a final piece. So there is a survey. Thank you for everyone, because I appreciate certainly some of you that I spoke to. It's very easy to get virtual event fatigue at the moment because we're constantly sat behind desks. Um, Fundamentally, if you're able to, we're sending a survey out at the end of this session to you. There's a prize draw for £25 voucher for for effectively one nominated person if you fill it out. It really does help us to obviously drive and continue to make these events more informative and more structured, in line with what I'd love to have done is have this in person and some of you come and see us. But of course, in the modern COVID-19 world that we live in at the moment, that's not entirely possible. But yeah, there's a survey going out. If you could fill it in, that'd be fantastic. In terms of next actions, and in the same vein as what we did with Rob some 14 months ago, be happy to sort of take any of the you guys on the call at the moment through a more detailed demonstration around some of the additional capabilities. You know, we just sort of scratched the surface there with some of the demonstration today, but specifically talk to you around, you know, the sales marketing journey and even further if you want us to. We can also sort of drop you in and give you sort of trial access to some of our housing stroke home builder sales accelerator demos if you want to have a play for yourself. So again, if you're interested in that, my email details are on the screen, and phone details are there and available if you want to make a call. And we continue to do these these events every sort of 6 weeks to a month or so. So you know, look out for the next one, and if you're able to join them, fantastic. So no other questions from the audience, but thank you so much for sort of spending this morning with us, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Take care.
Thank you, Jordan. Cheers.
Cheers, Rob. Take care, mate.
Bye.